The reason I joined Polkadot ecosystem approx 4 years ago was because I really liked the community and how governance is going on. I saw that there is something super interesting happening here, something that no one else on the crypto scene, and not just in the crypto scene, but nowhere else in the world is doing. So my background is actually security, living in hacker spaces and crazy stuff with all these crypto anarchist kind of ideas, and also working with many penetration testers, IT security experts, and so on. So there are always incentives to do decentralization and to create something different than the traditional governments. So when I saw what is happening in Polkadot, that there is a strong technological background, it made me very interesting after being a researcher for Ethereum smart contracts and starting my first business in 2019. So this is how CCTF DAO also started, which is basically now helping Polkadot ecosystem with organizing events, hackathons. If you heard about the Polkadot Championship, it's one of the hackathons from CCTF DAO. You can find some of our members here actually. And then as things went on, we started to provide consultation, helping people to get into Polkadot ecosystem, and I stepped up the ladders and became head ambassador in the ecosystem, which is now a well-debated position. And it's also one of the reasons I'm here to talk about governance, to see how Polkadot governance can actually work together with traditional governance, specifically the one we met and contracted in Indonesia. So what is governance? There are many ways to understand this, but basically you can imagine it as a tool, as a system to make decisions and actually use these decisions to execute something, to use power and exercise this power in order to make things happen. And I think one of the most important thing here is to actually take action, not just talk and going on forums, on the assembly and talk about many things and living in the dreams, but actually going out, taking action and seeing things how they really are. And this is how traditional governments come into the picture, because last year with Senior Ambassador Gabo, we traveled to Bali and actually started to work together with government in Bali, Indonesia, to bring Polkadot and Substrate technology for their own use cases. So they already had existing use cases in Indonesia, but they were struggling with Ethereum and Solidity and the smart contracts, and they needed something more advanced, something that can actually help the government in Indonesia to make things work. So that's nice because we have new technology, we have advanced ways to do governance, and Polkadot is clearly the best for this. And the other thing is, which we struggle with right now, is the legal aspect and politics. It's not just Polkadot, it's just the crypto scene. All the new regulations coming out, there is a big uncertainty. Politics is getting very strange. Now we even see like politics entering Polkadot with OpenGov and all this kind of new initiatives, which is really interesting. We didn't have this kind of lobbying in Polkadot a couple of years ago, so it's all because of OpenGov actually starting to work and getting into new shapes, which is really cool because I see these two sides. With Polkadot, we can help governments to bring them new technology, help with our own tools, and they can also help us with their already existing experience and management skills to make things more smooth and better in case of the technology. So my point of view on this is that in Polkadot, we need more BD. It's a big debate now. Yes, BD is a huge thing. Everyone is big on this. But what we also need is actually more on the legal, political, and actual governance side, on the governmental processes themselves, on how to make good decisions. So I think that this is a very interesting combination and a very good collaboration that as Polkadot we can actually uncover. And we have already one country who signed, and we already have Mandala Chain. Mandala Chain is the actual project that is from Indonesia and is working on making the practical part happen in the country, including the legal and political side. So a little bit more about Mandala Chain and what happened. So the idea actually in Bali, and one reason we chose Bali, why we still think people now start saying it's coming up, it's very interesting. Now they won a parachain auction with really, really beautiful numbers. But one thing that I think many people still don't really get is that people in Bali, especially like Balinese people, they understand decentralization, they understand Polkadot technology more because how they lived in the past and how their systems in the villages, how they make the decisions traditionally is kind of similar to what we are doing in Web3 and crypto communities. So actually one of the first points I listed here when we are comparing the Denpasar and traditional government to government on Substrate, where we are using technology, polans, and a lot of technical things, is both sides understand decentralization, which is a very interesting thing to find nowadays outside of crypto and the hacker scene. So when there is a decision traditionally in Bali, they even understand consensus, because the traditional ways in Bali to make the decision was to bring the important people of the village together, making a decision and spread the information across. So they didn't create like a centralized document where they say, okay, this land belongs to X and Y. They actually did the other way, which is very similar to what we call consensus in crypto. So they spread the information all over the village, saying that from today, everyone needs to know that this land belongs to that person. So that's very interesting, because our friend and also our main contracting partner who is running Mandala Chain is called Anta. He had a very smooth way explaining Polkadot to the government in Indonesia, which is really good because it's very hard to explain what Polkadot is to some government officials or banks or any institutions. They are somewhere totally else. Or maybe we are somewhere totally else. It can be debated, like who is more on the realistic side. But the point is that there is like a huge gap which we found possible to bridge and to communicate and to start working together. So the next one is on-chain identity, because in Polkadot, all of us, everyone knows what on-chain identity is, how it works. You can go on the registrar, set your identity, and you can get verified by Web3 Foundation. There is a registrar palette, and it works, let's say, kind of smoothly. This doesn't exist for traditional governments in this transparent and clear way, but it could. So one of the use cases that is offered to the government there is actually on-chain identity. And why it's very interesting for them is because of the certification. So if you go around a little bit in Asia and see what people state about their backgrounds, their certificates, you will really quickly find that there are some misinformation going on. So a lot of people have like tens of certificates, Microsoft, Cisco, banking, finance, everything. But when you actually go to the universities or the companies, you realize they don't have that. So that's how a project called Baliola started, based on this idea. And now Boliola is really happy to use Substrate technology and build this solution on top of Substrate for the government in Denpasar and for NFT artists and copyright. There's a very limited time here to discuss this, but I'm trying to give you some ideas on how these use cases can work out and what we already explored with the government there. And the next one is a fairly secure voting mechanism. I think in case of Polkadot, when we go to the treasury, it's kind of straightforward how a decision is made. Everyone is using the on-chain identity. DOT is your voting power. You vote, and it's very straightforward. Meanwhile, in traditional voting systems, there are many things that can go wrong, and there can be a lot of corruption happening. There can be fake identities or stealing someone's vote. So traditional voting systems, I think it's clear for everyone that they have many fallacies, which of course blockchain and Substrate can help with. Basically, not just with OpenGo, but some extensions to OpenGo is needed for this to turn it to actual political voting. But there is a possibility for that, and it's not very far. There is a project called Liberland. They already created judiciary, and let's say it's becoming a country, but they actually managing the Liberland country based on their substrate technology. Of course, voting is an interesting question, because what stops governments and countries moving to e-voting and using blockchain is not really the lack of the technology, but something else probably. Verifiable credentials is basically what I was mentioning about the certificates and what people claim about themselves. On the government, on Substrate and Polkadot side, we have a lack of legality, I would say. It's not illegal, but when you go to your tax authority and say, I have income from Polkadot, they will ask, okay, which company, which foundation, who is that? And then you say, it's Polkadot, it's a software. Oh, but there needs to be something. Where is it? Where can we find it physically? You can't. And that's a problem, and that's where we have the lack of legality. I'm only aware of one country who actually manages this in a very straightforward way, which is Estonia, where CCTF company is also, because in Estonia we can have income from a software, and they just say it's income from the software, and this works. So we actually talk to the tax authority through our accounting company. And they said, yeah, okay, it's income, that's clear. No problem, but in most other countries, there are problems with that. It's either illegal, or they do not know, or they will come back to you 3-5 years later saying, but what about this? That's not really good. That's why it's very important to find common ground with governments, tax authorities, and help them to understand what we are doing, how decentralized system works, and create a stronger legal background. We do not need to give any decentralization. We do not need to do anything differently. What we need to do is to actually make them understand and accept how we do things. And then there can be way more potential on mass adoption happening, because we are not in a stage where mass adoption is not happening because we don't have the technology. We have technology. We had this technology a few years back then. It's not technological issue. It's more about governance, banks, and all these big players. First of all, not really understanding what the hell is going on. If you talk to these people, they try to understand, but as I mentioned, the gap is huge. So it's very important that all crypto projects, not just Polkadot, all of them start opening up and talking in a more understandable way to these entities all over the world. So transparent and lack of privacy is another thing we need to face in blockchain, because it's really good that everything is transparent. That's a big advantage, but at the same time it's a disadvantage when you want to store something privately. And when it comes to privacy and actually storing something privately, it means that you need permissions, because just encrypting some data is not really giving you real privacy in the end, because the encryption might be broken. There might be some bug or a backdoor in this encryption. So if everyone has access to the data, even though encrypted, there is a chance that it gets broken. Maybe not tomorrow, but maybe 2 weeks, few years, 10, 20 years. But who wants the private pictures and videos uncovered in 20 or 30 years when machines get stronger and smarter and able to break encryption? Because this is how cryptography works. So all the projects that actually build these privacy storages, meanwhile actually dropping all the data on anyone who is a node, then it's not really an actual private solution. Maybe for a couple of years or maybe a couple of 10 years, but definitely not after. So governments, however, they require strong privacy, and that's 100% that doesn't work for them. And that's my laptop, sorry. So they require actual physical devices to be in the boundaries of the country, and they don't want to give out these devices to someone else. So when we talk about Denpasar governments wants to have the devices in Denpasar and maybe somewhere else in Indonesia, but definitely not in Europe or Russia or the US, because they want to keep their information secret, and they want to keep this information in their boundaries. And if you're a very privacy conscious user or someone crazy about this, then you probably also don't want to do the other way. So, little reveal, some of you might have seen this picture before, but there is this idea on how actually governments can implement or use blockchain, substrate-based blockchain for private chains, how they talk with each other, and how they can make transfers on Polkadot, even to Ethereum or Bitcoin. Like Ether already works well, I think. Snowbridge is in progress. But the idea here is that we are building them with G6, which is a project started last year, based on all these topics and needs that we discussed with governments. To help them to create their private chains with actual private storage, which they can physically place wherever they want with a battle-tested system. The battle-tested system is actually a Substrate and the Debian-based operating system, which we prepare for them, and battle-tested hardware, of course. So what we add is some new features that doesn't exist yet. It's a legal teleport. It's basically the already known teleport system between chains, but with backed with some legal extensions, cross-chain ZK transactions. So the idea is that two private chains want to talk with each other, but they are not revealing their own data because it's a private chain. The governments do not want to reveal any data or just want to reveal some part of the data. So for this, there is a G6 chain, which is a public chain. It can be Mandala chain. It could be other chains as well. Now it's just for the sake of simplicity and explanation. In this case, we use this connector system chain solution. So the private chain actually being tested in Denpasar. Everything is on Substrate. And Mandala will be also using a very similar solution. And all this cross-chain transaction and path tracing. Path tracing is a way to uncover some transactions between private chains without actually revealing it to the public. So all these features are in progress and happening. And I wanted to give you some insight on how this kind of future can happen and how institutions, not just governments, banks as well, or any kind of institution, healthcare, copyright, tax, whatever, actually can be part of Web3. Because there are two ways. Either CBDCs win everything we got eaten by CBDC, or we are faster saying, okay, we have a solution for you, use our solution, connect to Polkadot, connect to the already existing chains, make it legal, make it regulated, and then we will have, let's say, a non-dystopic, little maybe utopian future, which I'm trying to actually present here. So, use cases. There are so many use cases where blockchain actually makes sense for government. All the services, if you have e-residency, for example, in Estonia, most of these services could be used and accessed through on-chain identities, through your own private keys, which you have the control over. There's healthcare, copyright, certification, I mentioned before, patents. Patents is also a really good idea, I think. There are already existing use cases for insurance being implemented, which we cannot say which company, but I can reveal that this is already being implemented. Judiciary, there is already judiciary palette developed and ready and used by Liberland. So it already exists. Good governance in a sense of political science. I think OpenGo is kind of a good governance type of governance. You can use logistics, like I think Coca-Cola might be using it already. Enterprise management. There is also a very cool project on this. I think William had a presentation on this. Talisman is working on an enterprise solution for Substrate. Banking, feeless transactions. Feeless transactions are getting more interesting nowadays. Substrate can do this, no problem. Accounting and many others. So anti-fraud, path tracing feature, we specifically added to G6 this path tracing feature because there is a lot of problem when there are, for example, some EU funds. EU funds go somewhere to implement something in the EU based on the proposals, and then after the money is transferred, the money is gone. They have no control. With blockchain, if everyone is using blockchain, then there is a clear way and proofs on where the money is going or if there is something suspicious happening. But for this, we need private blockchains that actually support cross-chain transactions. That's the harder part, but it's definitely possible. So there are projects in scope which we work with now. There are a couple of more, but these are the ones which I think is interesting to mention here. So of course, Polkadot, as a Polkadot head ambassador, of course this is a #1, and our goal is to bring institutions to the Polkadot ecosystem with good deals. Good deals for us and also for them. But preferably, of course, we are on the Web3 side, of course. We are approaching this from the Web3 side. G6 chain, which is working on, it's our team working on delivering solution based on Substrate. Mandala is already using actually G6 on the lower layers, and Mandala is implementing the higher layers for Indonesia. We also work together with Liberland. It's a very interesting project. They already have implementations that are government related. And the logo on the side, sorry for this, I couldn't find the right one, didn't have time to request it, but it's Baliola. It's also from Indonesia, company that already implemented copyright solution for blockchain cases and for NFT artists and to protect Balinese artists. So they have a beautiful journey on doing this. And references, so this is a very short time to talk about all these things and getting into deeper, but I will be sharing this presentation with everyone, and you can find the links here, some cool projects, some theory about hacker spaces, on how villages work in Bali. I think it's a very good, a very interesting idea to dig a little bit into, seeing like how people traditionally lived before in a decentralized way, focusing a lot on the community. And there are some newer documents from UN, VGI, These are also very, very interesting to look into and see how these people think and move things around the world. So thank you very much. If you would like to contact me, here is my QR code. And do we have time for questions? Yes, so we have time. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Six. Do we have questions from the audience?
Oh. Yes.
Hey, thank you for this excellent presentation. And is G6 chain wants to implement some palettes from other parachain projects, like I don't know, Vara has a very nice product like the Gear protocol, which is payless transaction fee and so on, which can be used there.
Yes, absolutely. So right now, G6 chain has a couple of base palettes. Identity, registrar, treasury, collective, membership, these palettes are already in. So any governments who wants to use these devices, they will have this out of the box. They just plug the devices in and it works. And we are also exploring other ecosystem projects and palettes that we could implement easily and palettes that can make sense for governments to use. Absolutely.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, thank you very much for the nice presentation. I'm actually living in Bali as well. It gets me into the question: will you be having more collaboration with the local government in Indonesia, in another island, for example? And then what is the way forward for G6 Chain and your group? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Really nice to meet you here in another country. And yeah, we are looking forward to this. But first, we want to make sure everything is ready for the first version. And we have a big collaboration with Mandala Chain now. And when we see things taking off and our help is less needed in the region, then we will be also moving to other regions. But we first want to finish what we started in Denpasar and Bali, and then moving to the next region. So it's really cool that there's interest from multiple places. Hong Kong also is a very interesting place to go next. Dubai, actually we already have one MOU with Dubai for Polkadot and education and events, but we don't have so many people, so it would be so cool to have like 10 times more resources on the human side to make more things happen. But this is why Polkadot is good. So if you like the idea, if you want to help or join or make things happen, then Polkadot is a very good place to start new initiatives and making things happen. The ambassador program is open for everyone, so I can say to everyone that if you want to support this and help, then it's more than welcome.